Bootcamp. I welcome you all to day 2. Thank you so much for joining. You're welcome. You're welcome. Can you signify where you're joining from? Where you're joining from, and also share the link to invite others to join. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening from Lagos, Nigeria. Good evening. Good evening. So, our theme for this year's bootcamp is identify, identify, identify who you are, why you are here, and where you are going to. And yesterday we started off with who am I, identifying who we are as individuals, regardless of our job description, regardless of our backgrounds, regardless of our possessions, regardless of our certificates, regardless of what people think of us. Who are we truly? And that was where we did the cutting yesterday, and we reached some agreements, yesterday on who we actually are. And because of our time, I won't want to go back there. So just in case you missed yesterday live session, it was recorded. So just go through the videos. It's going to be the previous video, so you can watch and listen, so you can know where we are coming from. All right. So today we'll be talking about why am I here. We talked about who I am, or who am I yesterday. So we'll be talking about why am I here. So we'll be talking, we'll be focusing on purpose as a path and not a destination. So that's going to be our focus, because it's just a 3-day meeting, and it's a virtual meeting, and we can't, you know, take everything all together at once. So we have to, even though I'll try as much as possible to, you know, talk from different perspective, take different, segments of the topic, we'll be narrowing it down to purpose, right? So that is where we'll be talking about today. We'll be narrowing down to purpose, calling, direction, and all of that. So what are we going to be talking about today? We're talking about discovering purpose, because that is one thing we often face as individuals, especially as young people. In fact, older people are also struggling with purpose, because I've heard of people say, I've been doing this thing for 20 years, 30 years, and I feel like this is not what I was meant to do. And I'm like, how can you be doing, something for that long? And you're just getting to know that's not what you got to be doing. So that means, it's an issue regardless of your age, regardless of how people think you're successful. You really need to ask yourself, am I really working in purpose? Do I really align to my own purpose, the purpose I'm meant to fulfill? So that was why we talked about who you are yesterday and why you're here, which is the purpose part of our discussion. So we're talking about our gifts, we're talking about passion, we're talking about paint, and all of these clues to purpose. And also we'll be talking about purpose in phases, because sometimes it looks like, probably for the first decade of your life, you look like, oh, you're really working in purpose. If anyone asked you, you would have been like, oh, I'm doing the best thing ever. And probably the next decade of your life, you're not feeling that satisfaction again. So most of the time, purpose are in phases. You have a purpose, to fulfill part-time. So that is where most people get stuck. They think they're just meant to do one thing, you know in a certain description, and they have to do that all through their lifetime. Do you understand? So that is where most people get frustrated and get stuck and like, this is this all I really I'm supposed to do with all the gifts, with all the talent, with all the passion burning in my heart? Is this the only thing? People often ask me, am I meant to do just one thing? So we get to talk about that also in today's session. And we'll also be talking about myth about purpose, like the wrong ones. And we're talking about clarity versus societal pressure. And yeah, so that is what we'll be talking about today on why am I here? Why am I here? Purpose as a part, not just a destination. So in a few seconds, can we just, you know, pray and ask God to speak to you, that you will not just hear of my voice, you will hear God's voice speak to you through my voice. You will hear beyond the words I say, because I don't know what you're expectant of. I don't know what season you are presently, in your life, and you're, asking God some questions, and you're in that crossroad of making that vital decision. This is the opportunity you need to remind God again that you're here to hear of his voice, you're here to hear of his word. You want him to speak to you, that you really need direction for this next phase of your life. That even as we'll be spending, few minutes together, it's not going to be a wasted time. You will see substance from this session. You will hear the voice of God. You will receive direction. You will receive the blueprint. You will receive answers to the questions in your heart. In Jesus' mighty name, we have prayed. Amen. Lord, I ask that every burden be lifted, that every question be answered. I ask that let there be direction, let there be instruction. Let people know from now what you really intend for them as the purpose, Lord. This we pray in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. Okay, so once again, welcome to day 2 of the Peace Boot Camp. And this year we're talking about identifying who you are, why you're here, and where you're going to. And just like I said earlier, yesterday we talked about who am I. So today we're talking about why am I here? Why am I here? So I'm here to tell you that you're not random. You're not random. You're not an accident. You are who God says you are. We talked about this, we stretched this yesterday, right? So I want you to just picture, if your life was a movie, what would be the reason for you being in that story? What's going to be the reason for you being in that story? The reason, the character that you were playing in that story talks about your purpose, talks about your essence, talks about what what you're to give, um what message you're to pass across. So that is what we're talking about today. Purpose, 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 purpose. So there are lots of definitions to purpose, and just in case you're wondering what's the definition, there are lots of definitions, but I'll just give you something very, very. I like to give something very, very simple, straightforward, something you can even almost always remember, right? So I'll just like to put it this way. Purpose is the original intent for your existence. It's as simple as that. There are lots of other words I can use, but trust me, it still captures the definition of what purpose is, right? Is the intent, the original intent for your existence. So that is why it is necessary. Because imagine you existing. In fact, I think there was a session we had, I think sometimes last year, or is it 2 years ago now, where I was talking about, are you living or existing? So sometimes some people are just existing. We are meant to live beyond existing. We are meant to be more than one of the numbers of the populations, right? You are meant to live life to the fullness. And you cannot do that if you do not know your purpose, if you do not know who you are, if you do not know why you're here, if you do not know where you are going to, if you do not know the intent of your existence. And that is why today's session is very, very important. In fact, the whole of this 3 days is very, very important because we are talking about these three parts. So let me give you an analogy. I always like to give analogies, just like I did yesterday. So imagine a pen, right? Okay, I don't have one here with me. Just imagine having a pen. Do you know that I can use a pen right now? Let's say I'm feeling, my backside, like I'm feeling this probably burning sensation. I feel like inching it. Do you know I can use the pen to scratch my back? But the question is, was that pen designed for me to scratch my back? The answer is no. The maker, the manufacturer of that pen never intended that this is what it should be used for. But the question is, did I use it to scratch my back? The answer is yes. Another question is, did they actually help in fulfilling that purpose or that need? The answer is yes. But the third question, was that the design? Was that what it was designed for? The answer is no. So even though I can use a pen right now to scratch my back, and that still does not mean because it helped in meeting that need, that was the intent of the pen. That was the manufacturer, reason for designing or for producing you know, the object of the pen. We are going somewhere. So that means because you're doing every other thing, because it looks like, you know, yeah, you're making some money, it looks like, you're living life just like the way we call it, or looks like you're enjoying life, looks like, people are even envious of your position. The fact that all of those things are happening, the fact that you're waking up every day, going to work, you know, have a car, earning a good living, does not mean you're fulfilling purpose. The fact that you're paying your bills does not mean what you're doing is fulfilling purpose. So is paying of bills important? Yes, trust me, it's very, very important because you really need to eat and be alive for it to fulfill purpose, right? But my point is we misdefine or you know redefine purpose as to anything we do. So people think anything I'm doing now, right now, is my purpose. So that is where we get it wrong. So because it looks like you're succeeding in that area, it looks like, you're making headway, you're being promoted, you're doing good, just like the pen analogy I gave, because the pen was, met my need of scratching my back, does not mean that was the intent for the pen. If all I ever do with the pen was to scratch my back, that means I've never really, used the pen for its intent. That means till if I for the next 5 years, if all I do with the pen is to scratch my back, then what would be happening to the ink in the pen? Useless. Useless. So it doesn't matter how much I bought the pen, whether it's a golden pen, whether it's a wooden pen, whatsoever kind of pen, no matter how expensive, whether it's a it's a designer kind of a pen I bought, I'm more than using it. I'm not using it for the original intent. But is it have another purpose? Yes. So that is where we often use it that, oh, because I'm doing something or because I'm fulfilling purpose. No. So that is why it's necessary for you to really know. And how can you know if something is fulfilling its purpose, its original intent? You can only know by knowing the intent or the heart of the manufacturer. It is when the pen was originated or when it was, manufactured, and the manufacturer said, oh, now we're bringing a new product into the market. This is what is designed for. We can only know when, the original purpose of any product by what the manufacturer says it is. Whether to us it looks wrong or right, but whatever the manufacturer says, this is this product. This is why I created it for. Any other thing outside of this, you're misusing that product. So you, as a person, remember from where we started yesterday, you're a product of God. God created you just like a manufacturer. So for you to actually know your purpose is for you to really ask the manufacturer, because only the manufacturer can really give the product description, the product usage, how, the specification of the product. When you buy any product, you always have these leaflets that comes with it, talking about the product design, the specification, how to clean it, how to take care of it, how to care for it. Sometimes they will tell you do not expose to sunlight. Sometimes they will tell you do not, keep out of children reach. Sometimes they will tell you, clean, with warm water. They tell you how to care for it. They tell you how to use it. So the fact that you bought it with your money does not mean you just use it anyhow. If you use it anyhow, you will end up damaging the product. So for that product to be useful, to be effective, in fact, some product has warranty for it to, for it to perform optimally. You must use it according to the way the designer or the manufacturer intended for you to use it. Anything short of that is you damaging it. So no matter how many jobs you're doing, no matter how much you're earning, no matter what people think you should do, no matter what you think you should be doing, if it is not according to God's design, if it is not according to God's intent, remember, purpose is the original intent, not some, situational intent. Just like the pen analogy I gave earlier. Using the pen to scratch my back is a situational intent. I intended it to scratch my back because a situation came about that needed to scratch my back, and probably all I had with me was the pen. So that's why where some of us will meet, oh, I find myself in a situation and I think that's just my purpose. No, your purpose is always the original intent, not the situational intent, not the societal intent, not your family, not your parents' intention, not even your own intention, because you did not create yourself. Just like the way the product would never create itself, it always have a manufacturer, a producer, right? I hope someone is getting something. All right. So there's this quote by Dr. Miles Mura. I love him so much. I've read all of his books, listened to all of his messages, right? So here he says, if you don't know the purpose of a thing, you will misuse it. It says, if you don't know your own purpose, can you say the word your own purpose, not the purpose of your brother, not the purpose of someone that looks like you, not the purpose of someone that has the same nationality as yours, not the purpose of someone that has the same skill, talent, went to the same school as you did. No, your own purpose. It says you will let people use you wrongly. Just like that pen. I will go back to that pen. Imagine you has the pen and they're asking you what is your purpose, and you're like, oh, because Grace used me yesterday to scratch her back, I think that's my purpose. That is never the purpose of the pen, even though I used it to scratch my back. So if the pen was to be given a mic and say, okay, can you tell us your purpose, the pen will be making a mistake by thinking that because I used it yesterday to scratch my back, that was its purpose. So if you, as a person, as an individual, as a product of God, as the very image of God, do not know your purpose, people will give you one. They will tell you something. Situation we assume to you what your purpose should be. So another question people often ask, is where does purpose begin? Or where, how am I supposed to start out? Is purpose something that, I will sleep and to just come to me? How exactly am I supposed to come about my purpose? I'm like, you don't need to come about your purpose. You just need to discover it. You don't need to design and no, you don't need to. It's not you. It's just like you're not the manufacturer. You're not your manufacturer. So it is not you designing what your purpose should look like. It's not you trying to come up with it. It is you discovering. That means it's already known, but probably not just known to you yet, right? So I said here that purpose begins with God, not with self. I just said that now. So it's not just about what you think, it's always about God, because God, just like the analogy, is the manufacturer, is the designer of you. So it always has to begin with God. It always has to begin with God. If you're talking about purpose, I'm not talking about what I feel like doing, what I think I should do, you know, the job that is the highest pay. I'm not talking about that. If that's what you want to do, fine. But if you're a person that's interested in the journey of purpose, oh, God really has to be involved. And purpose is not what you design by yourself, it is something you discover. It is what you discover. So it's not you sitting down trying to come up with what your purpose is. No, you discover it. So just like I said, yeah, I also wrote, I said you did not create yourself. So you can't define your purpose on your own. Scriptures to back that up. Jeremiah 1:5, where we talked about it yesterday, also, talking about before I formed you, I knew you, I appointed you, and all of that. Romans 8:28 talks about, how that we have been called according to divine purpose. And Ephesians 2:10, we also read this yesterday, talking about how that we are created for good works. So there is a work, there's a kind of work. So they are created for good work, prepared in advance. So there's a kind of work, there's a kind of problem you're meant to solve. There's a kind of solution you're meant to bring to the world. And when you're talking about purpose, it's always about God and the world. It starts with God and it's meant to serve people. Your purpose is not meant to serve you. Your purpose is not for you. So when talking about purpose, it's never about you. It's never about you. It's not for you. Even though you're the one doing, just like the pen analogy I gave again. Me using the pen is not, how will I really put it? The pen is servicing me, not itself. So you as a person that want to walk in purpose, you're not to service yourself. That's why, in the political sector, they call it service. Even though it looks as if, you know, they are being put in a place of position and power, a place of, great honor and dignity. It is never meant for them. It is always for the people, because they were there to serve. Even it looks like, oh, they are the leader, they are the one up there. Even though they are the one having the titles, it is never about them originally. It was never meant to be for them. It was meant for the people. They are meant to service the people. So anything that has been designed by God, just like the plants, just like the animals that God created, those the star, the sky, all of those things were not created for themselves. In fact, God said you were created for my pleasure. So it is not for you. You're not to pleasure yourself. You're not to service yourself. We are talking about purpose here, remember. I'm not talking about what you feel you should do, how you think you should embezzle and use people and use positions for yourself. That is where misuse of power comes in. When people have, you know, when people have the opportunity to be in certain positions of power, to handle some kind of power, they think it's for them. So they end up misusing people, manhandling, resources because they thought it was for them. It was never about you. So anytime you're talking about, or you're, imagining, or reasoning purpose, always remember it is never about the person. It is always about service to God. It is always service to his people, to your world. That is what purpose is meant for. Are we getting it right now? Are we getting it? We are building something. So I'm going to be sharing with you 5 truths about purpose. The first is you were born for a reason. I've said it, you're not a mistake. Your existence is intentional. And we've checked this, even with the scriptures we've read earlier on. Another truth is purpose is not a job title. Just like I said earlier. So it's not limited to being a doctor, an engineer. It's about who you are as a person. Remember, I talked about who am I yesterday. That is not about your job. Even though your job can be, you know, a part or a means to fulfilling your purpose, but it's never you. You are not that job. That is not you. If you're ripped off that title, you should still exist as a person. So that was why we started yesterday by talking about who am I, because you really need to understand yourself. Be able to detach all of those titles, all these job titles, positions, doctor, honorable, all of this. You should be able to exist outside of this thing, because they do not make the real you. The real you is the one within. It's not the outward that everybody sees. So that was why we started from that yesterday. So please, if you miss yesterday's session, you really need to go back, because we are building from where we started off yesterday, right? So it's never about the job title. It's not limited to being a doctor. So the question is, can my purpose be to be a doctor? Yes, that could be your purpose. That is, those are like channels to fulfill your purpose. God can decide that you can still fulfill your purpose, but by not being a doctor. Probably your purpose is to heal people. But do you know that not only doctors help people to heal? What if you were called to be, a prophet, that you don't need to do surgical operations on people? All you just need to do is just lay your hands on them and they are healed. So can you see how that is important for you to know the intent of your purpose? So all of this, whether being a prophet, being a doctor, they are channels, they are the funnel, they are the means to fulfilling your purpose. So it is not that that is what your purpose is. God can call you, and in all that he will say to you, he might not even give a title as to what you should do. And you're wondering, what exactly am I supposed to do? Imagine someone like, okay, don't let me go ahead of myself, right? Let's just continue from where we have right now. So just like I said, so the third truth I want you to note is purpose is progressive. Said you won't see everything at once. Most of the time it is reviewed step by step. And I think I also said this earlier when we started. When I talked about how that sometimes it looks like you've been working in purpose probably for 10 years, and you feel, you know, there's a new phase as to what you're called to do. And you're like, I think there's a new purpose for my life. It's not like it's a new purpose, it's a new discovery for you. So purpose can be in phases. So where some people miss it, or they think they were just created to do one thing all through life, like just one thing, just one job description, and that is how they are meant to. A part is just how they can fulfill it. No, Sometimes there are channels, there are funnels, there are directions, there are different ways as to, different phases to fulfilling purpose. I hope you're getting it. So it's not just about it's not just a one-way thing. That okay, I know I started off just writing book, and probably till I die, I will just be writing books. What if the new phase is to start writing movies? I'm still writing, right? But that is another phase. Probably now is to be an editor. Probably now is to work for the government. Now it's not just me writing in the corner of my house again. So we need to understand that most of the time purpose are in phases. And I'm going to give examples very soon. So I also wrote here that pain can point to purpose. Because sometimes what breaks your heart may be what you're called to heal. And we also see these examples as we go forward. I also said there's a very important truth about purpose. Remember, I'm talking about truth about purpose. So the last one I have here is purpose brings peace. When you work in purpose, confusion reduces. You stop chasing trends and start living truth. That is when you stop existing like every other person, like every population on the earth. You start living. You start living as a person. So it brings peace. Anyone fulfilling purpose. Like that, so sometimes you see some persons do some things and you wonder, like, is this what you really want to? And they're like, I'm happy doing this. It gives me joy. I've met a lot of people, and to you feel like that's not what they should be doing. And they're telling you, this is the most peaceful thing I've ever done. Like every time I wake up, I look forward to doing this thing over and over. It gives me so much joy. I feel so much fulfilled. That's his purpose. And you see that people, even though it looks like they are earning and they're doing, what they are doing is stress to them. So does that mean working in purpose is not stressful? That's not what I'm saying. But no matter the stress, it's a kind of stress you enjoy. In fact, you will prefer to work on Saturday, to work on Sunday, to work anytime, wake up, do the work. You're not feeling, even though you're tired, you're still enjoying the stress. I think for someone working in purpose. For anyone that is not working in purpose, we see any iota of stress or any iota of inconvenience or out, like they will grumble and murmur and complain and like, oh, what kind of life is this? So does that mean that people working in purpose do not face, you know, um situation whereby they get tired? No, it's not like they don't face it, but there's just still this peace, inner peace that still comes with it, that accompanies them even when they're in the storms, or like someone that is not working in purpose. So one of the ways for you to really know if right now you're working in purpose is to ask yourself, what is my peace level? What is my satisfaction level? How fulfilled am I feeling with this thing I'm doing? That's one of the ways to really know if what you're doing aligns with your purpose. You must feel this peace. You must feel this satisfaction, even though it might not be the big success, the glamorous one you're used to, but you must feel this kind of content. Like, like you feel like, oh, I'm in my space. Yes, that spirit really must accompany you if you really want to live a life of purpose. Right. So I wrote here some misconception about purpose. Common lies you need to debunk like right now, from now. So people say things like, I'm too young to know my purpose. I run a mentorship for teenagers. Sometimes they ask me some questions and they're like, I think I should just still be, you know, enjoying my life and do not get worked up with all of this adults and stuff. And they think fulfilling purpose is for adults. I'm like, who told you? Until I started giving examples of younger people than themselves. that are already living their lives. So purpose is never about your age, right? It's never about your age, and no one is too young to know, fulfill, and work in their purpose. Some people also say things like, oh, only pastors or big people or people called into high places have a calling. I don't have a purpose. It's only odd. It's some people that have purpose. I don't think I have purpose. Everyone has a purpose. If you do not have one, you will not be here. Trust me, guys. Trust me, trust me. If you do not have purpose, the moment you stop having purpose, then you don't need to be here again. You need to die. That is the end of you. Because what will you be doing on earth? Occupying earth, occupying the space, taking in oxygen. No, no, no. God is a wise manufacturer. Is a wise, he will not just keep on producing that. No, he has an intent for you. So for you to be here, I'm telling you, you have a purpose. No matter the phase you're in right now in your life, no matter how it looks so confusing, I want you to tell yourself, I have a purpose. Never you believe that you do not have one, or it is just meant for some kind of people. Another misconception people often have is purpose is only about doing something big. Oh, is people, is the known names like Elon Musk. If you're not, if your name is not out there like a celebrity, like a politician, like, breaking the world records, you're not fulfilling purpose. That's a lie. That is a lie. That is a big fat lie. There are a lot of people fulfilling purpose everywhere in the world that you might never even know. But according to God's agenda for their life, as far as God, the manufacturer and the designer of their life, is concerned, trust me, they're fulfilling purpose. You will never know who's fulfilling purpose until we all get to heaven and we are given our report sheet. And God is like, oh, this is what I created you for, and this is versus what you did. That's when you really know people fulfilling for purpose. So it's not about doing the big things. Do not lie to yourself. So is doing big things supposed to be, or God's plan for you in your purpose? Maybe, yes. But the question is, will everybody do big things? No. Let's be sincere with ourselves. Not everybody will do big things. But can everybody fulfill purpose? Yes. So far your purpose is about doing big things. Please, I beg you, do the big things. But do not allow doing the big things be your purpose. I hope you're getting me. Your intent should be to fulfill purpose, not doing big things. Because the big things might not lead you to your purpose. Doing purpose might lead you to doing big things. If things is part of God's purpose for your life. So does that mean everybody fulfilling purpose have to be big, have to be known, have to be famous, have to be a celebrity? No. So that is why you do not look at other people. That's why you do not. There are a lot of millionaires and billionaires that are never celebrities. That you will never hear of their names. And in their world, trust me, they are fulfilling. They are eating the nail, or on the head. They are doing it big, and God is proud of them in different industries. So do not let to be known or to be in a kind of position be your focus. Your focus should be purpose. Your focus should be doing what you're meant to do. Because if you're in someone else's lane, frustration, depression, all of those things are not far from you. Those are the kind of people that will grumble and murmur and complain about their jobs, even though they are still doing it. So the peace we just talked about, for you to really enjoy that peace, live in that peace, and die peacefully, you must embrace purpose. You must embrace purpose. You must embrace purpose. Another misconception people often have about purpose is my past disqualifies me. Oh, I refuse to agree with you. I do not know what your past may be. and I might never get to know. But one thing I know is that your past, in as much as I'm saying this again, in as much as your past happened in your past, and you're not, today is no longer your past, right? And you're living, you're seeing today, and you will see tomorrow. Trust me, God have a purpose for you. The fact that you did not die in your past, the fact that you're here today to be talking about your past, that means your past does not disqualify you. If it actually does, then it should have disqualified you, and God will be like, oh, since this was the kind of past you had, then it has robbed you of your purpose, then you can no longer fulfill purpose. So far, God is aware of your past and is still keeping you alive, and you're still here. Trust me, your purpose is still very valid. So do not allow anybody, do not allow yourself to lie to yourself. Do not allow Satan to whisper lies to you that because something in your past. So far, you did not die in that past. So far, that past is your past. It's not today. It's not tomorrow. It's not what will happen. It's what has happened. And you're still here. You did not die in it. You did not die after. You're still here. You still have a purpose. If not, you would have died with the past. If not, the past would have wiped you out. So no matter how hurting, no matter how depressing, no matter how traumatic the past is, I need you to really stand up right now and tell yourself, I am not my past. That was why we started yesterday. Who am I? You are never your past. You're never your mistakes. Were you the one that made those mistakes? Yes. But those mistakes defines you? No. You are not them, even though you made them, but you are not them. You're not your mistakes. So never you name yourself your hurts, your mistakes, your misfortunes. They are not you. And so far you made those mistakes or you had a horrible past does not mean you do not have a purpose or God has not intended something for you. So far it's still keeping you alive. So far you're still here, breathing, listening to me right now. You have a purpose to fulfill. So you really need to get up right now and start fulfilling it. So we need to start running, right? So I will give you 5 guiding questions to discovering purpose. Remember, I told you purpose is not what you sit down and you invent. A product do not invent its purpose. It discovers it by reading the leaflet. That's how you get to know the purpose of an item. So I'm going to give you 5 guiding. This is just to help to guide you, guiding questions to discovering your purpose. So you can write this down if you want. So the first thing is your passion. This is one guiding question you need to ask yourself. What is my passion? What do I love deeply? Because you don't need to ask if it's, this is, take this as a retreat. This is actually meant to be a physical boot camp. This is, if it were to be, I would have really given you time to really do that and get feedbacks. Because there are a lot of things you love to do. But there are certain things, probably just one, that you love so deeply. This could, note the word, this could be a clue to what your purpose is. Remember, I said these are thoughts to guide you, right? The second is your talent. What do I do well naturally? What do I do well naturally? At least naturally, this thing comes to me, even though I might need to refine it, I might need to still get trained and in order to gain mastery at it. But this thing just comes to me naturally, even without me thinking. Probably the first thing that comes to my mind when I wake up in the morning to do, probably after waking up, doing my chores, praying, and all of that, the thing that comes to my mind is to write, start writing something. I do not I don't have to really think far, or start to think, oh, something that just comes to you naturally, effortlessly. This could be a clue to your purpose. Another is burdens. Burdens. What really burdens you? What breaks your heart? Probably you hate to see people being maltreated. You hate to see corruption. You hate to, something that really burdens you. You hate to see people sick. You hate to see people being depressed. You hate to see, those, what are those burdens in your heart? This could be a clue to your purpose. Another one is your calling. What problem do you feel drawn to solve? These are also almost about burden. Sometimes you have burden for some things, but you don't feel drawn to solve them. I hope you know. Sometimes you just say it and it sounds like complaint, right? Oh, why this thing like this? Hey, yeah, this thing that happened. You just feel bad, but you don't feel drawn to solve them. So that's different. So because you have that body, it might not really be a calling, but it will be a calling when the burden is there and you're feeling drawn to, like, oh, you got to be the one to solve this problem. You're seeing yourself as the savior, as the one to save the day, as the Superman, as the Iron Man. So this could be a clue to your purpose. And another one is divine clues. Divine clues. What has God said about you? And how can you know it? By His word. You get to know God by His word. Probably you're reading your Bible a day and it's just jumped to your heart and you're like, oh, this is what I think God is saying. Or probably in dreams or in visions, people have received, you know, clear instruction as to what their purpose is. And across scripture, there are a lot of people that have those kind of divine encounters. So not everybody might have that divine, encounter, or that divine ceremony, or that divine obstruction. So that is why we have all these clues as to what you feel drawn to, what you're passionate at, and the talent you have. But for some people, sometimes they get to know probably by word of prophecy, but probably someone tells them, and it's not just the only way. It's something you also yourself probably get to know via dreams or kind of expression, or probably a revelation, or probably while reading God's words. So all of those divine you know clues can really help you in knowing and discovering your purpose. I also said here that purpose is at the intersection of your passion. So just say across, like, passion, pain, God clue, your talent, everything meets at the junction of your purpose. Do you understand? So even if you got a divine calling, you should have a talent or passion. It's something that just joins and arrives at the purpose. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Okay, so let me just give an example of people, characters. I will use the Bible characters, and probably also make reference to some persons I think might know, but these are the people we've seen the beginning and the end of their lives. Because anybody still living now is not has not yet really lived the end of their lives, right? So these are the people that we've seen all through scriptures how they live their life from cradle to death, right? So that's why I'm using these people as examples. So the first character is Joseph. And just like I said earlier, it doesn't have to do with your age. Joseph was a teenager when he started fulfilling purpose. He started with a gift, being a dreamer. So can you see how the progression started? He did not. Someone like Jeff will have thought, "Oh, my purpose is to be interpreting people's dream." And even if another opportunity came or another phase of purpose came for him, he will get stuck with, "No, the only one thing I'm called to do is to be interpreting dreams." But Joseph will be shortchanging himself because that was not the only purpose he had that God intended for him. It was not only locked up in his talent or gifts, which is to interpret dreams, but that was where it started from. So can you see? It started from being a dreamer, interpreting people's dream, and he ended up being a preserver of a whole nation. He ended up being a prime minister. So is doing big things part of Joseph's calling? Yes, But did he start from doing big things? No, no. In fact, his purpose led him to different kinds of trouble. But you will see something with Joseph. In all of those scriptures, God was always with him. It was always peaceful. It was not, even there were times like, Luke's his situation was not a pleasing one, but it was always peaceful. God was always with him. He was always carrying God's presence. He always knew there was more to his life than whatever present situation he was facing at any different, given time. Probably when he was sold, when he was in prison, he knew that was not all about him. So this is as an example of someone that really lived a life of purpose and did not really start big, but ended up being big. And this is also someone that started off as a teenager. So it's not a matter of you're the firstborn or no. In fact, he saved the whole family, not just his family, he saved the whole nation. So guys, why it's important for you to know your purpose? Because someone like Joseph will have just settled for interpreting dreams. So purpose are in phases. Another character is David. Oh my God. We all know David. He also started off as a teenager, right? And he was a very talented person, knows how to play. Because of the time, I won't be able to open the scriptures. When Saul was king, and you know, he had they needed someone to minister to him to relieve of him the evil spirit that God has casted on him. And when they were reading the, let me just put it this way, probably the biography of no, probably the bio of of David. One of Saul's servants said a lot about David. He said, "Oh, he has the spirit of the Lord with him. He's mastered in playing harps. Is this? Is diligent. They gave a lot of things, a lot of features about him. That talks about his character, talks about his talent, talks about the divine hand, divinity upon him. So can you see that even all of those clues I gave you to discovering purpose, like your talent, all of this, David had these things. But were those things his actual purpose? No. But were there clues to his purpose? Yes. But even till he died, he was still writing psalms, he was still praising God. So even though in different phases of life, it's just like being an actor, taking up different roles, taking up different character. David will at a time be a worshiper. David will be at a time be a king. David at a time will appear to look like a priest. So that is knowing purpose and allowing God open your eyes to the fullness of his intent for your life. But there was something, that was peculiar in any form or shape David or the character he embodied. And that was that everything he did was unto God and to the people. Unto God and to people. There was never a time that he was servicing himself. He was always servicing God, probably in worship, serving people by being their king. Can you see? So purpose will always point to God and serve humanity. So there was something peculiar about the life of David. He was a preserver. He was a man after God's heart. That was his purpose. If David was to write, probably just a word about his life purpose, I'm sure he would not just be saying the purpose is to be a king. No, those were reflections, those were pathways, those were funnels to fulfilling a purpose. Those were funnels, those were pathways to fulfill. But were those things his purpose? No. But those were paths that God had designed that He will fulfill those purpose. His purpose was to bring people to God. Ensure He could have done that probably just as a priest. A priest also does that. right? But God intended that it was going to be more than just a singer. You'll be more than someone that brings the glory of God. You'll be more than that. Just singing song. David, now you have the ability, you have the talent. The talent, remember what we talked about, the talent you have, the gift you have, your passion. Remember, David also have passion for the people. So all of these things brought about the character that David played. From being a shepherd boy to being a worshiper, to being a king, to being a priest, and all of that. In fact, he was even a prophet because he spoke about the days to come. He spoke about the time of Jesus. So all of this is about you will see in all of those things, you will see his talent, you will see his passion, you will see his burden coming into place. Another example is Esther. Esther, the purpose of Esther was so simple. You could put it in words. It was like a deliverer. So you can deliver a nation, you can deliver a generation. But the way Esther needed to deliver the generation at her own time was to be queen. So was her purpose to be queen? Not necessarily. But that was the character she needed to assume to fulfill that purpose. Because before that time she was not queen, right? But she got to you know, the pinnacle of her purpose by being queen. Because if queen is what will make you the deliverer, then the queen you shall be. If probably there was another title or another character she needed to be in order to fit that purpose, that is what she would have been. So that was why I said you are more than your title, you are more than the position, you're more than the job description, you're more than the position you have. So for Esther, it is more than being queen. She became queen because the queen was what was supposed to, at that time, was what was needed that would be useful to fulfilling her purpose. If at that time what would deliver the people was someone in the position of being a prophet, trust me, Esther would be a prophet. Because her purpose was not to be queen, her purpose was to deliver a generation. Can you see why you need to work with God? Because knowing your purpose is one thing, knowing the path at which you need or is expedient of you to fulfill that purpose, that's another thing. That's why, because some people have some kind of talent, they think they can use it in any way. No, there is a way you need that is needed for you to actually use it if you want to fulfill purpose. So for Esther, her purpose was to deliver a generation. And the way that she would have delivered the generation at that time was to be queen. If she needed to be another character, just like in a movie, that is what she would have been. But being the queen, the position she needed to assume what was the queen. So because you have some certain gift does not automatically tell you how you will use it. You also need God to know how, when. There was a when that Esther needed to be queen? Because it was at that time the people were going to be killed. If she had been queen before or after that time, it would have been useless. So purpose is very, very vital in the life of everybody. There's a who, what, when to purpose. To who are you feeling purpose to? For Esther now it was a generation. For David it was to a nation. Some persons it could be to a family, it could be to a community. That's why you need to know the scope at which you're meant to fulfill your purpose. That's why you're not just trying to aim for being a national. You need to understand the confines of your purpose. You need to understand the when and the how. The how for Esther was to be queen. The when was to be after Vashti has left, when the people were going to be destroyed. And to who is to for our own people, for the generation God wanted to preserve, the Israelites. I hope you're really getting it right now. So another example is Timothy. He was a young leader, a pastor, a leader in the early church. He was a mentee of Paul. Paul will always talk about my son Timothy, my son Timothy. He was a very young boy, yet he was a pastor and a leader. So you really need to know who you are. You really need to know your purpose. And the life not is I'll be giving is Jesus. Even Jesus did many things. The main purpose of Jesus coming to earth was to die. That was the ultimate purpose. But was that the only thing he did? No. He healed the sick. He attended, ceremonies. Was that part of the purpose? Maybe because he did some miracles there. But that was not the intent of him coming to earth. It was not to turn water to wine. But did he do that? Yes, he did. He healed the sick. He showed us how to live life as Christians. He became a foreigner for us. He did a lot of things, right? So we really need to get ready. So I wrote here that sometimes purpose shows up not as a loud voice, but as a gentle pull. As a gentle pull. Sometimes you just feel disconnected from probably something you've been doing for you, and you feel like, nah, I don't think I should be doing this thing. That is purpose calling you. Or you're feeling drawn to something, just like, and I made a post sometime last month that I resigned, my job, and I really want to focus on these areas of my life because I got to that point like I was done with this thing. I knew it was not my purpose, but I was just doing that I know as a job. Right? I was like, no, now I really need to cut this off. So the purpose can pull you into something. Purpose can also push you out of something. The time you start feeling discontent about your job, you're feeling like, oh, no, why am I even doing this thing? Or you're feeling the pull towards something. It could be a call of purpose. So one thing I'll need you to do is to write your purpose clarity statement based on what we've talked about today. Doesn't have to be a long thing for you to write. It can be as simple as, I believe, let me just give you a template. Like, I believe I am created to do dash. Just like I said, purpose always have a what, a how, to who, and all of that, right? So this just use this format. I believe I am created to do what? Like, what are you created to do? Put it there. For who? Is it to a nation, to a people, to the distressed, to young females, to women, to boys, to teenagers? By how? How do you intend to do it? Is it by being a prime minister, by being the next president? How? So, example, it's going to look like this. I believe I am created to teach young girls how to know their worth through storytelling and mentorship. So, it can be that simple. I'm just giving an example, okay? And I really want to encourage you to be honest. You need to be honest with what you're writing. And doesn't have to be the final of your life. You can always, because just like we talked about earlier, purpose unfolds over time. The most important thing is you to discover it very early and you start living it. Because you will never know the end of it until you start. Because always unfolds, they are always in phases. So I need you to make this declaration. I am not here by accident. I am here for a reason. I have been gifted for good. God has placed purpose in me and I will walk in it. Did you just say that? Can we say that one more time? I am not here by accident. I am here for a reason. I have been gifted for good. God has placed purpose in me and I will work in it. So shall it be in Jesus' name. Amen. So we're closing now. So now that you know who you are, we talked about that yesterday, why you're here. So the next question is, how do you succeed in it? We're talking about where are you going, like the next phase. This is what talking about tomorrow. So join me tomorrow. It's going to be the final day of this. I really hope you've gotten something from today's conversation. You know, tomorrow we'll be redefining a lot of things. We'll be wrapping up the subject of identifying who you are, why you're here, and where you're going. All right. So, just like I said yesterday, also, I have a free mentorship platform for young people, for teenagers, but trust me, not everybody there is a teenager. We have more than teenagers there. So, if you just, looking for a place to grow, um, in any area of life at all, you have questions, personal questions, anything you have, you can drop them on the comments, of this chat. I'll take the question before tomorrow's final session, or you can feel free to also join my free mentorship platform. I will also drop the link. Check the description of this video. I will drop it there. So till we meet yesterday tomorrow, right? Stay blessed. And my prayer for you, even as we close today's session, is that God reveals to you your purpose. My prayer is that clarity comes upon you, because you can be overwhelmed by how many things you can do, by the how many talents you have, by so much burdens in your heart. My prayer for you is that God reveals to you his original intent for you. My prayer is that God brings clarity as to the first phase of your purpose and to the next phase of your purpose. My prayer for you is that God affirm your unique assignment on earth. That no matter what you feel right now, that you will hear a voice of God, not just me now, tell you, I have called you for such a time as this. In Jesus' name I've prayed. Amen. So let's see you again tomorrow. Stay blessed. And do well to share this with everyone in your corner if you have been blessed. And also invite your friends and everyone you know really needs to hear of this as we conclude tomorrow. Do not forget to drop your questions, and also look forward to my link on the description to join my free mentorship platform. And I love you all. Do have a beautiful one. Bye.